Welcome back to another Permadirt and Friends review. How is everybody doing out there?
Hi.
Um, hey, that person you heard right there, maybe saw, is none other than Ostrichwrangler, who sometimes streams and enjoys a good. Is it safe to say enjoys a good Costco hot dog?
Oh, I can't go to Costco without getting a hot dog.
I know, right?
Last
It's
one I had
like
was, like,
what?
at open, like, whenever that was 10 in the morning. Crushed a dog.
Well, I mean, you're there. You might as well get a dog for what's like a buck or something, buck 50 or something, maybe
69 with
inflation.
tax, and you get your drink too.
Oh my gosh, the deals just don't stop at that store, do they?
Best.
On the other side, we have a picture of Poka
Mm,
underscore TTV, who sadly isn't with us today, but we put a picture there just to, for in case maybe his face brings you in. I don't know. He's there. You can look at him. He won't move for you this time.
you won't speak either.
Otherwise known as the PvPvE king of the cheat riddling Tarkov.
Is that a thing now?
For those of you who know anything about Tarkov, know this week has been about a big issue, a big topic. We won't get into that right now. Maybe we'll talk about it after. But you are here to talk about The Last of Us episode 7, entitled Left Behind. Anything you would like to say before we get into this here, Ostrich?
Aside from my prediction about my last week's feelings came
Yeah, what was
true,
your last week's feeling? To let them know before we go there.
my prediction last week was I felt like it would be a useless episode.
Okay. Okay. So that was where he stood. Now, had never played the DLC, correct?
I have not.
Mm, mm. Okay, so did you know what it was
Yes.
before we went into it? Okay,
Yeah.
so you kinda knew. I mean, I know I mentioned it, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I knew the premise of it and the origin stories and stuff behind it, so
Okay. Before we go any further as well, if you end up finding this on Twitch, make sure you follow these guys down below. I never said that. And if you would like to see the previous ones, go ahead down below. YouTube channel, Permadirt Gaming. Go there. You can check out all the previous
you know, this
episodes, mostly, except for 1 and 2 right now.
click that sidebar.
We'll figure that out eventually. It's only my 5th week of saying that, but that's okay. One day we'll do it. All right, let's get to it. This one runs 55 minutes and is directed by, I guess it's Liza, because it's like Liza Johnson. Not Lisa, I assume. So
I think
Liza.
it's a
Liza
fair
Johnson.
assumption.
Let's go with that. Like I said, 55 minutes, and this one we knew was going to be the DLC of the original game. So for those of you who played the DLC, we knew this one was going to be that. It's literally called Left Behind, which is what the DLC was called. It's been named that for a long time, blah, blah, blah. We knew that. So it opens up. It opens up on a snowy town where we're in this snowy town. It kind of pans in, and we see Ellie is trying to save Joel. So they got the horse in a garage, and they nicely parked the horse in the garage, and Joel's on the ground, and obviously he's still bleeding, but he is conscious again. And he kind of says once again, he tells her to leave, to go back, to go away, go get Tommy, type thing, right? So right away he's kind of doing the same thing that we kind of picked up on in the middle of last episode. It's at this point that she walks away and closes the door, I think is when we get the flashback. She kind of walks away, goes up these stairs, closes the door to the rest of the house. And then we get a flashback with her running laps with a Walkman.
Mm.
So good
Oh,
old, essentially Phys. Yes.
I will say I'm screwed up because I thought that opening door was the happy scene from the game, and it was not. So my prediction was wrong on that last one.
Oh, yes, yes. Opens the door. She's running around doing laps in a gym with a good old fashioned Walkman on. None other than the good old Sony plug right there for their Walkman. And let me tell you, did I use one of those growing up?
As did I. Didn't have the
You could
cassette
just
one, but I definitely had the
the
CD one.
Discman. It was a
Yeah.
was it called Discman? Yeah, it was Disc. It was a Walkman Discman. Is what I think officially,
Oh
like, it's a
boy.
Discman. I think it was their official thing. I believe.
Uh,
I believe. Anyway, this fantastic piece of machinery. She's running laps, got her music, which was rare back in the day. Rare back in the day. The fact that they also have batteries, I was kind of curious. I'm like, we got these batteries. These are pretty old and they're still working. I
mi-
didn't want to get into that though.
Mine is called a Sony Walkman CD player. I had
Oh,
I had the fancy one. I even put
nice.
a picture in the chat.
Okay, so then she's running around in circles and then eventually gets bullied by this girl who I don't think I put her name in here. Bethany, maybe? Maybe I can't remember. Anyway, she stop and they're kind of pushing back and forth. And she kind of says, "Oh, your friend is gone," and Ellie really doesn't want to fight at this time, but she kind of alludes that she will. And then it snaps over to a new scene. Just cuts right over to the captain Kwong. I think his name's Kwong. Yeah, it's Kwong.
Sure.
His office. It's basically like think of the principal's office here, folks. And Ellie has a black eye, and Captain Kwong sits down with her, asks her what's going on, and just she's not having any part of it. She's like, "Just put me in the hole." And he's like, "I've already put you in the hole several times," which is kind of crazy to think about. These are kids, and you're putting them in like a prison.
Yeah.
It kind of shows again, like Fedra is a character in this story. I think more than the game, because the game you don't really get a lot of Fedra. You get mostly Fireflies, a little bit of Fedra in the beginning, but this one's definitely fleshed out a little bit more, I think. Oh yeah, Bethany. And this is where they say like, well, he's like, "I can't put you in the hole. I put you in there several times already, and you gave Bethany 15 stitches or something like that." Somehow they get to that. So as much as you see Ellie with a black eye, you're like, "Holy cow, she messed her up." Maybe pulled her knife out on her. I don't know.
Ching ching.
Um, yep, exactly. He tells her the truth about two paths, one leading to a life of a grunt, the other one becoming an officer. So kind of tells her like, "Hey, like you're smart enough, you're capable enough. This could be your life. Or if you keep on the path you're on, you're going to be a grunt, meaning you're going to get all the crappy jobs, you're getting all the crappy food, you're going to get all that garbage."
Yeah.
Um,
He says you're gonna have
which
to
is
work for
like,
the Bethanies.
yeah, exactly. He said, and you're gonna have to work for Bethany, most likely. So your commanding officer will probably be Bethany, which again doesn't sit well with her on the account that she hates her. At this point, you see some keys dropped on the dropped on the table. I thought it was worth mentioning, and had a Naughty Dog symbol
I
on the
noticed that
key,
as I'm watching it
the
right
paw.
now, actually.
Yeah, yeah, it had the Naughty Dog symbol. I'm like, ah, you sly bastard, you.
It is quite clever.
Um, and then he also gives her the Walkman back, which is very kind because you don't take someone's Walkman. That's
Sure.
fight.
Yeah.
That's fight state right there.
Just ask Bethany.
Back, yeah, back in Ellie's room. So now we snap back to Ellie's room. We see so many callbacks to basically everything in the game. There's lots of posters, things like that. We see the AHA Take Me On, Take
Yeah.
On Me tape, which of course we said before. Mortal Kombat stuff, the pun book. Um, so we've seen multiple things, and some of these things that are coming back as well, in this episode. Um, so eventually someone sneaks in. She falls asleep. She wakes up. She hears rattling. Someone sneaks in. We find out that this character is Riley. And if you played the DLC, obviously you knew this was Riley because that's the main other character in this episode. She asks where she's been because obviously this is the character they referred to earlier. Like, your friend's not here anymore. She's older. She's taller. Because I think Ellie. I mean, I guess in this flashback, is Ellie 14 in this? I actually don't even know how far back this is.
It couldn't have been that
Do you
far
know?
back because, like, they don't do anything to age her or anything like that. So we
Yeah,
were kind of talking
we could.
about it, and we thought like it can't be that much more than a.
Yeah. Well, I'm
Well,
trying to think.
no, because she got nommed on in this episode, and when she showed the bite to Joel, she said that was she got bit 3 months ago. I'm
3
pretty
months ago.
sure.
So it's not, yeah, so it's not that far. That's kind of what I was gonna say.
Was it three
Was
months?
that yeah, I think she said 3
Okay.
months. Um so there's a 3-year gap between them. So this is the Riley character that we're talking about. Asks where she's been because obviously she's been gone for a while. Tells her that she actually joined the Fireflies. So Fireflies, again, we've learned, are another rebel group trying to overthrow Fedra, like we've seen with multiple different groups along the way here. We saw with Kathleen, hers weren't the Fireflies, but it was just another inner city group um, that was trying to overthrow Fedra. Tells her to come with her and they're going to have an amazing evening. So she's obviously like, she's ventured out. She's doing something else. She joined the Firefly. She's seen the outside world. And tells her, just kind of talks back and forth and tells her just to trust her. Just trust her. Which once again is, I said, a kind of a callback from last episode where the big trust talk was with, I can't remember, Tommy's wife. Can't remember her name now. Where she's like, the people who trust you will hurt you the most type thing. Be careful who you trust. I thought that was interesting. They brought that up right away. We are now outside. So they go out the window. We're outside. And they talk about this, some sort of like, was it a 7-Eleven situation? They start, talking as if they have some sort of history, basically, is what we're trying to get there. These two are, they're kind of mischievous. They've been in trouble a bunch together, and they kind of have these stories that they do have a history. They eventually go up into another building, up it all the way to the seventh floor. Obviously, they're joking along the way. It's 2 floors. It turns out to be seven. And they find a dead dude
Aw.
who was not there before, looks pretty fresh, and who they end up finding had a bottle of liquor and took some pills, so essentially committed suicide in this situation, and which obviously again just shows the current state of these places, that this is not, as much as Fedra is trying to have this hierarchy and keep everything together, that it's just not a good place to be, and that people are struggling. So then they kind of look at this person, and then eventually hear some cracking because there's water going down this building. It's not a good building. And this dude just crashes
Yeah,
right through the floor.
that was startling.
That was startling. Also, that's alarming. If that floor is that rotten already, I
Yeah,
mean,
they don't seem too
everywhere in
concerned
that
about it.
everywhere in that building, I'd be worried about stepping at that point.
For the record, I hate scenes like that. Like, I hate it when it's a dude who's dead or anyone who's dead with their eyes open and just kind of like staring at them. It's like,
Mm,
why are you getting so close? Even if I think this person's like 99% dead, I'm still kicking them to make sure things. I'm
yeah,
grabbing that
poking
bottle and
them.
moving away.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not just getting
Yeah,
with my face right up there in this
no
world.
chance.
I'm not doing that. Um, So another part about this I know is Ellie laughs. So this dude falls, this dead body falls. Um, Ellie's just, even at this point, is like, I don't know if it's because Riley's there, but like it's interesting because she hasn't seen the outside world yet. She hasn't experienced too many horrible things, I would assume, and she's already laughing about it.
About
So
that.
it's kind of, yeah, feels kind of interesting that she's already in that mental state. Asks if sorry, what's the other? Okay, so they go outside, they cross past the body, they go outside to the roof, and they both take a drink at this point. All right. And they're talking, oh, it's the real stuff. Ellie fakes liking it, of course, just like she did before, just like, yep, right. We've seen her take a drink before. Um, and then they right away transition into like some real talk, asks if that was Riley's first dead body. Um, and then kind of starts asking, why'd you become a firefly? And Riley kind of explains that she was just sneaking around, and had been seen by this 40 or 50-year-old person that she says, like, she says old or 40 or 50 or whatever. She kind of stumbles over. It's kind of funny. And then she ends up getting recruited from her at that point. We can assume I'm assuming at this point, this was, um, my goodness, I'm drawing a blank. What's her name
Ooh.
that we saw from the Fireflies? They gave him the task.
Oh, what's her face?
Yeah, why am I suddenly drawing a blank?
I'll get it.
Um, yeah,
The other
bring it up
lady's
'cause
name was Maria, by the way.
oh, Maria. This one's also starts with an M.
Mary Lou.
No. I'll keep going. You let me know.
Marlene.
Marlene. Jeez, I want to say Merlene. I'm like, that sounds like a man. Marlene. And from here they talk about, like, so we don't know it's obviously Marlene, but we assume because Marlene's kind of like the head honcho in this area, and the description kind of meets her. It's the right age. So they kind of end that conversation there. They're kind of bantering back and forth also about fireflies and all that stuff. And then we get the Spider-Man scene of roof jumping.
Nothing like drunken
Um,
roof jumping.
was that?
Nothing like drunken roof jumping.
Yeah, nothing like well, I mean, we don't know they're drunk. They had sips. All right, we don't know. It's not, but still very dangerous. Dangerous if sober.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Um, so they jump through a bunch of them, over a bunch of them. Sorry, going away so that they can obviously get to where they're trying to get, because they are sneaking in this situation so that Fedra doesn't see them. They're not supposed to be out. Obviously, I guess I didn't say it before. They're not supposed to be out. She's supposed to be, Ellie's supposed to be in her bed. And obviously, having a new Firefly in the camp that they're mortal enemies is not a great thing either. So they're trying to be sneaky, going along the roof, jumping. They get to the kind of the end, and they talk about, again, different viewpoints, Fedra versus Firefly.
Mm.
So in this scenario, we had with Captain Kwong talking with Ellie, kind of almost gave her like the teacher speech, like, if you want this life, it could be yours, right? Like, they're trying to talk her up, saying like all this great stuff could be yours. You could be a captain, you could do this, you could do this. And Ellie's kind of bought into that already. As we're, Riley's on the other hand, going over here and being like, "How can you support them? This is not what we want." Blah blah blah. Fireflies, right? So they're kind of having this going back and forth, even though now they're almost enemies. They're still friends, obviously, and stuff like that. But at this point, they have arrived at the mall. We're going to the mall. So they get to the door. There's no power, so she tells her go through the door and wait. So she goes through the door. This is Ellie. Goes through the door and wait. Power suddenly comes on, reveals a perfect. I put 2003. Oh yeah, sorry, that is right. I'm playing the game and the timelines are a little different. A perfect 2003 version of the mall. And let me tell you, this place is glorious.
Looks cool.
I don't know.
A lot of cool lights and stuff.
It does look cool. Yeah, a lot of neon. I like neon and fun lights.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So right away she says they're gonna go see. Riley says to her like, "Oh, this is the mall, and we're gonna go see the four wonders of the mall," and which I thought was a cool way of putting it. I don't think they use that in the game. I find that really cool. It's kind of a neat way of saying something. They come up to literally like a few steps forward, and there are electric stairs, as they say, or escalators, which they determine to be the fifth wonder of the mall.
Yep.
Not originally part of Riley's original scheme, but escalators nonetheless.
Honestly, probably the best part of this episode.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh man, we're gonna have so much to talk about,
Okay.
even though you're on a. um, so the electric stairs, Ellie goes on them and is just having a blast. She's going down, she's going up. She's like, "Look, I'm not moving at all." Right? She's doing the stairs. She's doing basically everything that someone her age would do for the first time on these stairs, essentially. Right? She's just being a kid on them. Everything that you get annoyed with when you're trying to use them and someone's doing something dumb and you're like, or like a kid comes whipping by when you're on, you're like, "Come on, man. Come on. Get off these sharp, pointy stairs."
Yeah.
That's all I always think. That's all I always think. And then they get down to the bottom and they keep walking and they look around and they kind of keep talking about like how people looted and some things are picked clean and some things are like mint. And it's kind of a funny sort of take on essentially where we are as humans, and what we value and what we don't value. So she jokes about how they looted the Foot Locker and left all the soap.
Yeah.
There's basically like a Bed Bath and Beyond type thing right behind them. That's pretty full.
The body shop.
The body shop, yeah, but
Actually,
the
just watching it right
Foot
now.
Locker store is completely pillaged.
Yeah.
From front to back, which is hilarious because I guarantee you that happens all the time as well. You know what I mean? If everything was to get turned upside down, the first thing people go and grab are the expensive shoes and items. Are like, well, these aren't going to do anything for you. Like, they're gonna be. If anything, you should be going to the different stores that have like steel toe boots and like things like that because you need something that
Maybe a
lasts
tent.
outside. Yeah, maybe a tent, maybe some. Yeah, you know. But it's funny. It's just a good take on society and things like that.
Did
Um,
you passed it already? I'm not sure if you're gonna draw to it later. The movie poster of Dawn of the Wolf.
Does that come later? I think.
They
I think
just they
that
passed
comes
it.
a little. Oh,
They
okay.
passed one version on this one, but if you have something to say about
Oh,
it
okay.
later on, then I'll.
We'll talk about it for sure because they do mention it in the original game.
Mhm.
About that whole movie. So like I said, they do that, and then they end up staring at a Victoria's Secret store. Obviously, it's not actually, it doesn't say Victoria's Secret store, but that's what it's supposed to be. And anyone who's been in a mall realizes I think every mall in history has one of these things stuck in it. And talks about why people want. They kind of, once again, it's a different world. They're used to like functional living versus what we see here is not that. Right. So again, it's kind of interesting. They have some banter back and forth. I thought it was very funny. At this point, they move on. They get closer to something. She closes her eyes and holds hands with Riley. And again, the camera kind of pans in on it a little bit, focuses on it a little bit different. It holds for a little bit, which makes you think, okay, they're focusing on this sort of, maybe it's not a friendship, maybe it is, we don't really know, between these two characters. So she closes her eyes, they move closer, tells her to open them up, and we see a merry-go-round. And isn't this thing lit up perfectly?
Pretty.
Just has those incandescent glows. You know what I mean?
Just buzzing.
Just buzzing. Probably the most power used ever. Just a bunch of 100-watt bulbs, probably like 400 degrees in there. Probably getting a tan as well. coming out of that thing with a tan, put some tan bulbs in there.
I have a question. Was there ever,
Mhm.
because in this movie or in the show since the start, I just know that she is attracted to girls. Is it uh, was it not a known fact for the earlier episodes? Like, I know this is kind of
It
the first time they've actually shown it, but like, was it ever really it was never really a secret or anything like that, right?
No, yeah, they never said anything about it.
Okay.
They just said she had a friend type thing. They never said that she is or isn't, or we still actually don't even know to the like, to what extent, I guess,
Right.
at this point. Like, we have no idea. Um, so it is kind of like when they released the game, it was kind of a people were always had their suspicions and things, but it was never actually said.
Okay.
Um, so they go to the merry-go-round. They talk about overthrowing Fedra. Riley kind of opens up here. Like, the main reason I left was that I was turning 17, and that's when you get your first detail, she says. And her detail was given to her by Kwong, and she was going to be basically shoveling poop,
She was that.
which is a terrible. Can you imagine just
I
being
would run
like
away. I too
17
would
years
run away.
old? You're gonna shovel crap. That's what your job's gonna
Yeah,
be. You're
apocalyptic
here.
crap, which just seems
Yeah,
worse.
exactly. So, I mean, you can hardly blame Riley for wanting to get out of there, being 17, getting your first detail. You're out of school. You're no longer hanging out with your friend, and you're going to be shoveling poop all day. Sounds like a great way to pick up a disease in a place that you don't want to pick up a disease, if you're
Mm.
asking me. Um, so they're going around. They're also, like I said, they're drinking on here again too. So they've had multiple drinks. Ellie took a massive swig out of that thing when they were
She crushed
when
it.
they were going. I was like, "Holy cow, you look like you weigh nothing." That's a lot of alcohol on an empty stomach.
Yep.
And then so was that the second wonder?
That
That
was
was the
the Ellie's
yeah, that was the
second,
second
Riley's
wonder.
first, yeah.
Yes, exactly. And then at this point, just off to the side, they look at a box, and Ellie asks if this thing is a time machine. And this is Ellie's third wonder.
Yes.
And we find it's just simply a photo booth. Once again, these were in all the malls at that point too. Even the one where Ostrich and I grew up had a rinky dink one at one point. I don't know if you remember it.
Did. I remember
We
where it
did,
was.
yeah. It was there. Hilarious. It's hilarious how all of these things, even
Yeah.
tiny little ones, had these. It's hilarious. So they're just being silly, obviously. They're living their life, putting money into this thing that's now worthless, and just having a great time. They don't really spend much time in the show on this one. They right away move on next to the arcade. Once again, the rinky dink one where we grew up too also had an arcade at one point.
Mhm.
Do you remember that as
I
well?
do, right beside the theater.
Oh,
Or right connected
yeah.
to it.
No, it
That
wasn't.
one?
No, it wasn't the theater. No, no, no. That's before then. Maybe you don't remember it.
Uh-oh. Which
Oh,
one?
oh yeah. It was right beside, I think, where still the hairstylist place is in there right now, which is like the only thing that was left. You know where that place is?
Yeah.
There's a place in there. I don't want to yeah. It was right to the if you're looking at the front of that store, it's to the left. It used to be a big arcade in there.
I don't know if I remember it.
It eventually became the gamers' other place
Yeah,
there. I
yeah.
don't also want to say, yeah. It also got split up, but it was in there at one point. There was a big one. It was a big one. It wasn't even a small one.
Huh.
I think it was there, or it was somewhere in that area.
Okay. Don't know if I remember that
So
actually.
anyway, we find this arcade. Ellie describes it as the most beautiful thing she's ever
Mm.
seen. They turn around, she's like, oh, "It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." um, she does what every kid does and tries to find change. This is the best part because if anyone who's been young or been in a didn't have money, the first thing you do when you want to play games, you go and you press the little like panic relief button thing to like, clear anything that's in the way, or you check the bottom see if there's any loose change in there. Like maybe some kid had a quarter and they left it in there so you could play. It's the first thing she does, which is funny. I thought that probably only resonates with a certain amount of people, but I'm glad she did that. And then so she's like, "Oh, we don't have any change." But then Riley obviously has thought of everything. She already had the machine that gave you change, so you could play these games. It's already been done and opened up. They then walk up to the Mortal Kombat 2
Yes, they
game. Call
do.
back. Yes, I'm
Serious.
really glad. I'm really glad they committed to this. You know,
It's such an easy thing to do too.
yeah, it's an easy connection for sure. Which is obviously a recall to the second episode, and in the game, again, it's a recall to that too. There wasn't Mortal Kombat in the game, but it was a knockoff at that point.
Yeah.
At this point, this is when we first see obviously the kind of the what is it, antagonist? Is that what it's called? Englishman?
Yeah.
Yep. And it pulls back. down the hallway type thing, and we see this infected dude. It's not a clicker because he can see, but it's like it's an infected dude, like a runner almost. Um, where he's sitting in the wall with all the fungus and all the everything growing around him, and he just wakes up. And so we know this place is not 100% clean. So you're just like, oh man, here we go. Here we go. Um, let's see. Ellie says at this point, she has to leave and
I think
so
nobody
leaving in
chose
child.
Scorpion or Sub-Zero though. Like I feel like those are the classic. Someone's got to choose them.
Yes,
Anyways,
exactly. Well, at this point, well, okay, okay, so we had Raiden or Raiden, I guess, to some people, and on the other side, what was it's the purple girl? I always
Melina.
forget her name, Melina. Which, again, yeah, you're right. You need to go Scorpion. You need to go Sub Zero. Obviously, those are the goated characters in the
Yeah.
game. Like, what are we doing here? But I don't blame them. I don't blame them. You know, they're just kids.
They don't know any
They're just
better.
kids who need education. um, so that was the fourth wonder right there was the arcade. And you're right. I think at this point I did miss the theater. The theater has all over it, plastered all over it. Has what's it called again? Dawn of the
Dawn of the
no, well,
Wolf.
yeah, Dawn of the Wolf, which in the game they talk about a little bit and kind of passing. And it's supposed to be, it's essentially like a knockoff of, at this point, what are those movies called? Twilight. It's a knockoff of
Yeah,
Twilight in the
it's
game.
just a fictitious one that they created for like the Last of Us world that they just kind of had plastered everywhere. So it was neat that they put it
I
in
can't,
here because I
I
saw it
can't remember what
right
they,
away.
oh yeah, me too. I can't remember what they said in the game, because in the game there was a statement like,
There was a couple comments that you could click on and say something.
yeah, and it was like, was this like the great movie of this or something like that? Was like a great movie of this time? He's like, no, it's like a garbage chick flick, or I don't know what it was. It was some sort of throwing shade at it,
Yeah.
the backhanded sort of shade at it, which was great. Um,
And this next scene here where they're at the restaurants, man, I was just shouting them all out. I was like, these restaurants are fire here.
yeah, I know,
You
I
got
didn't even write them
Thai
down, but I was
Express,
surprised.
Panda
I was
Express,
surprised. Oh yeah,
A&W, and then
I'm also
Subway.
surprised they can get away with a lot of that, like
I
putting that
know.
stuff in there. I don't know what the copyright rules on a lot of this whole thing, but
I guess not that.
um, yeah, exactly. Um, So Ellie says she leaves. It's time for her to leave. She can't get in trouble again. Obviously, she just got in trouble at the beginning of this. Riley says that she still has a gift. She has a
Mm,
gift. And she's been so she's okay. Like Ellie kind of goes along with it. And she says she's been living in a well, not she doesn't say it. She brings her to, like you said, the food area here, the and the food court, and she's been living in a taco nacho restaurant.
Macho Nacho.
Um, yeah, yeah. Nacho taco. And they go behind there and she right away sees like, oh, you've been living here. Hands Ellie a pun book, which again happens in the game. And you can sit there and read as many puns as you want. This is kind of the first thing you see with her and her sort of puns, which have carried on throughout this whole show and the games. Um, and there was hey Ostrich,
Hi there.
what did the triangle say to the circle?
Oh, it's something about
You're
corners. I forget. You're a
you're
something.
pointless.
Pointless, that's what it was. Dang it.
And then they're kind of looking around there because obviously Riley's living there, so she's kind of just snooping around on everything, and she finds a stack of pipe
It's a
bombs.
couple.
At this point, too, again, she kind of snaps back to reality, and she's like, "Oh yeah, like we're kind of enemies. Like you might end up. Would you bomb me?" She says, "Would you kill me? Like." Look at this. You have all these bombs sitting here. Like, what would you do? And she kind
Mm,
of storms out and says that she's leaving. Um, Oh, and Riley said, sorry, at this point, Riley says she's leaving. She's actually being shipped out of the area. So this will be the last time they can hang out, as
right.
she's gonna be gone. The Fireflies are moving her to a different area. So
She was quick for her just joining them, whatever it was, like a couple
yeah,
weeks, right?
I
But I
was
guess
gonna say it did not
Fireflies
take
move
long.
fast.
It did not take long at all, right? Like so. I don't know. It seems interesting, but at the same time, I guess if you don't want to shovel poop, you gotta do what you gotta do in this world. Um. So yeah, she's being shipped out. This is her last night. Ellie was about to leave. So
Mhm.
then Ellie storms up. We see her kind of backtrack through everything we've seen. She backtracks through. She gets to that door that she was told to go through. She stops and she's kind of sitting there thinking, like, oh, I don't really this is my best friend type thing. This is a person I care about. And so she sort of stops and goes back. And then she hears a scream at this point. A bunch of screaming in which she obviously thinks, "Oh my goodness, she's in trouble. I got to go help her."
Fair.
Um, yeah, so she starts running, following the screaming, and she keeps running and running. And surprise, fifth wonder, it's this like what scary store?
It
I don't
is.
know what you
We're
call it,
looking
like
at
a
a
Halloween
Yeah,
store.
Halloween costume store.
It seems like this store would do really terribly the other like 11 months of the year.
That's 100%.
It's a huge store too, but whatever.
It's a
Um,
pop-up.
maybe it's a, no, they didn't have pop ups back then. It's in the mall. That's rare. It was maybe it's a costume store that's like based on different times of the year, right? So you get your your winter holidays and Christmas stuff, and you get
Sure.
your what I mean.
Yeah.
Maybe who knows? There's Santa stuff. Maybe there's like bunnies jumping around for Easter. Who knows? Um, what else we got here? So she goes there, realizes it's the fifth wonder, and talks about how Riley, and they kind of sit down. It's kind of an interesting take here. I kind of enjoyed this. Talks about how Riley used to have a family. She kind of says, I know you didn't have that, Ellie. You never really got that, but I did, and I
Mhm,
want that back.
mhm.
And you don't know what it feels like, but I do, and it's a hole that's missing, kind of is what she's saying. Um, at this point, then they kind of have that sort of heart to heart talk. Then she gives Ellie a werewolf mask, and she hooks up the aux cord. Very rare at this time. I was using an aux cord as well. I did have one growing up, but hands her the aux cord,
Yeah,
which is good.
what it
Hooks it
is.
up, yep, to the speakers in the store, and starts playing. Wait, and hooks up. Was it "I Got You, Babe"? I think was it. But
I
it's not the original.
believe so, yeah.
Yeah, but it's not the original. It's like an upbeat one.
Yeah, for all the dancing
Yeah.
kids out there.
Yeah. And so they all got a mask on. Riley has like a scary clown mask on. She has the werewolf, and they start dancing on the on the counter. And let me tell you, I was
The moves.
even though I've played the DLC, I thought for sure something was going to happen where they fall through that counter. It was flexing. It was. It's just glad. Were you thinking about that too?
I
It's a bit
was
paranoid
I
for
was
me.
concerned. I could see a foot go through and you get your leg all scratched up and you have sharks after you because they can sense
Well,
the
you get
blood.
impaled,
Yeah.
So I was worried about that. Let me tell you. Um, so they're dancing on this thing, and then, like I said, they had the werewolf mask, and at this point, then they're kind of dancing, and they kind of stop. They pull the masks off, and they ask her not to go. They ask, or
Mwah.
sorry, Ellie asks Riley not to go, and then she kind of sneaks on in, and they kiss at this point.
Just a peck.
Just a peck, just a quick one.
Mwah. No, it's a little
Um,
longer. I'm
it was a
rewatching
little
right
bit,
now.
but they kind of had this like brief moment
Same,
of maybe both of them
same.
were in that moment. They kind of smiled after. It was kind of like obviously like a consensual thing, but which also
3-second kiss.
what
3-second kiss.
3 second?
Yeah.
Oh, just timed it. 3 seconds. One, two. Okay, that's a decent one. That's not a peck.
Steamy.
Yeah. Okay. Um, and then they at this point they kind of sitting there enjoying their time, and then just as we are kind of having this moment between them. We hear a sound, as always in The Last of Us. You can enjoy moments. Yep, there in comes this runner. We'll call him, I guess,
At
or
the
whatever they're called.
48-minute mark, we finally get some action.
We get some action, which obviously Ostrich is thoroughly needing at this point,
Look at this
based on his
crap.
response. And so they're struggling. They're going back and forth. Obviously, Riley's a terrible shot.
I can see why they're
Just
moving her.
I mean, she hit him, or she hit the dude
I think she hits it
just
at least 2 or 3
twice,
shots,
at
yeah.
least two. I'll say confidence, at least two shots. None of them landing on the head though,
No.
which is obviously going to be a problem. And so they battle back and forth. Riley has it, and then sort of Ellie's fighting as well. They kind of go back and forth, and then Ellie gets up and stabs this dude right in the side of the head or neck, somewhere like that.
She gets him,
And
yeah, right in the side.
and they both
First
die, and they're both sort of like jacked up, and kind of like Ellie's jacked up and excited and all this sort of stuff. And it's kind of like holy crap and all this stuff. And they kind of have this sort of again pan out, sort of like a quick snap back to reality. And we see that Ellie has been bit. Because Riley's kind of like look out, and she's been bit, and you kind of see Ellie at this point kind of go to her hand and starts like or her arm and starts like wiping, trying to like wipe it away.
Mhm.
Um, and we also go back to Riley, and Riley's been bit on the hand as well, which is crazy because I don't remember like these people must be aggressive biters. Like they have to be quick because like didn't like there's not like an obvious moment when you're watching like oh yeah there's a bite there's a
Yeah,
bite.
and I feel like that's usually
But
how it is with these reveals, right? Like, it's not
that's
a
true. It's supposed to be that
yeah.
way, right? So they didn't show it. Um, and so they've both been bit. At this point, it snaps back to current time. So we're back in the beginning with Joel and Ellie in the house. Okay, so we snap back there and we just see Ellie scurrying through the house, looking through everything. She's looking through drawers and doors and everything else. For just a brief moment, showing her that she's still looking. She's not taking Joel's advice and going to go get Tommy and leaving him. She's looking for something. And then once again, it's a short scene. We snap back to Ellie and Riley. Um, where at this point we see Ellie in the background just smashing everything. She is totally
Yes.
PO'd that this has happened to her. She can't believe she's been this reckless. She could have left. I'm sure she's super upset. She knows the consequences in this world of being built or being bit. They both do. And then she kind of sits down, kind of tuckers out, and asks, "What are they going to do?"
Mm,
At this point, Riley kind of says, "We have two options. We have the easy way or we just keep going." So the easy way is um obviously they just end it. She has a gun, they call her quits right there. He says, or we just keep going, which means we don't quit. Whether it's 2 minutes or 2 days, um, those are kind of our options. We'll just ride it out as humans, whatever time we have left. And it's funny at this point, Ellie asks about option three, um, which again, it's something a young kid would say.
mm,
Um, right? Like the two options suck. No, like I want a third option. Like give me the third option. Which again, we learn that Ellie does have a third option. Riley doesn't.
right.
Um, and so based on what we know about the game, we know that they chose option two, the more difficult route. Um, so again, once again, a couple minutes go by, we snap back to reality again, normal time. And we find that Ellie is looking everywhere and she ends up finding a needle and she ends up finding some thread to go with it. And she runs back to Joel, and Joel kind of, once she comes back in, he sees her, and there's kind of like that tear that rolls down, like he's kind of like she came back even though he thought she was gone, right? She closed the door, left. He thought she left, but she actually came back
Yes.
and starts going to work, like I said, with the thread and closing up the stab wound. And that is where this episode ends.
Joel's not sounding or looking so good. Probably just because of the
Um,
game, actually. I think he's sounding
what was
just
that?
as
Sorry.
rough and squeaky in the game as he does in the movie or show.
Yeah, I honestly thought he's worse in the game. To be honest, like
Mhm.
he sounds worse.
A lot of squeaks.
Okay, so there we go. That's the full episode. That's 55 minutes. Cruised through it pretty quickly, but what's your takeaways? What do you got here? I know you got something to say. I'm sure if I had to guess, you're gonna say it was probably slow.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go
Yeah.
through it.
And I always say that, like, or I'll always, I said it before too. I hate callback episodes in anything, any show. It's always gonna, I'm always gonna like it not as much because I think it's a
Okay.
waste of time and doesn't progress the story. Um, and I still feel that way after watching this.
While not this is not by any means my favorite episode. I really did actually still enjoy this quite a bit. I'll still be up there with my other sort of ones when I rank it. Um, I really did enjoy it. I think what this episode shows, because even the DLC, when I played the DLC for the game, I never thought it was a crucial piece of really anything
Mhm.
other than showing a little bit of Ellie's background in the bite. Um, it was the stuff that they said in here. It's laying the groundwork for season two or part two. Which once again shows me that while they only renewed for a second season, like after the first one or first two episodes came out, I can't remember what it was.
I think it's second.
Um, there was always an intent to roll forward with this.
Oh, yeah,
Like, it was always baked in there. Like, I don't believe them for 1 second that they weren't gonna go on for a season 2.
totally.
Um, but because a lot of things in here lead towards it. In the beginning of the episode, we had Riley comes in and kind of says like, "Hey, like you can't fight everyone." Which for those of you who are playing or have played part 2, you'll know that that is the driving factor in that game. So, um, there's things like that. There's just a bunch of groundwork being laid for this part 2, as well in this one, which I think is going to be important. I think this is going to be one of those episodes that maybe in the moment right now isn't necessarily a favorite, but I think once the show has run its course and you look back, I think it'll age better than you think it will. You know what I mean? It's kind
Uh-huh.
of like I tell people that some of the nerds that are here that have played Metal Gear Solid 2. It's kind of like Metal Gear Solid 2. I like to think it's setting itself up for that. Where like in the moment for the when the game came out, you're kind of disappointed it's not Solid Snake and all this stuff. You're not playing Solid Snake. You're not doing this.
True.
But and you're kind of like this character kind of sucks. But then as now 20 years later, you see where the game went, and you see where the not just the game went, but where the character went, and how many predictions they had in that game that actually were spot on and everything. And it ages like a fine wine. I think this one will too, because once people have watched it all the way through, and those people who really love it, and they go and watch it again, they'll be like, oh yeah, like look, they were telling us this stuff, they were showing us this stuff, and I think that's why this is really important. I think. But I will say, from obviously an action standpoint, it's there's nothing that really happens here. The I like some of the changes. We can talk about what happened from the DLC versus the show, because there was some changes and there were some things I wish they would have done that they didn't with this sort of second opportunity. And there's some things they did that I'm glad they did, because I think it makes it more believable. But at the same time, I don't think I don't hate it. I don't hate it, I guess.
I
I don't feel like it was a throwaway week.
I think, and I said it last week too, and I still feel this way. I feel this show should have been the in between seasons. You do season one, in between season one and season two, when you have your year-long delay, you release this one-off episode to remind people that we still exist and we still whatever. And you do a little tribute to Ellie there, and then that's all going to play into your season two stuff, because that'll explain whatever you wanted to explain.
Mm.
I feel this episode had nothing for me.
Didn't have anything
It
for
did
you.
not make me care about her any more or less.
Okay.
I didn't feel like there was any sort of heartwarming bits. There was nothing that made me freak out or be like, that was super cool. I
Okay.
feel like it just didn't push anything for me, and I was sad
Okay.
about it.
Nothing at all.
Mm,
Yeah, I know. We're definitely on opposite ends of that. I definitely feel like it's like I said, it's in par with most of the other episodes, other than like I really enjoy episode 3, and I really enjoy like there's certain ones I did thoroughly enjoy. I still found this was something it was needed. Was it was it the best episode? No. Was it the worst? Not by far. Um, there's no way that whatever that one was, episode 4 or whatever the one was with Kath, was it that one? I can't
yeah.
remember which one it was now that we all, that one to me was way worse. Not way worse. It was worse. Um, with regards to pacing and kind of, it just kind of it kind of gives you the origin story of our main of our main person. Like as much as this show wants to be about Joel, it is Ellie's show, right? Joel is just the train that moves the track, or just the sorry the tracks that move the train, in my opinion.
I would
Now
agree,
having played part 2,
especially where part two
right?
goes.
Like, yep, exactly. So I mean, I I, I think this is an important story. Now, like I said, sure there's not much action. Um, but I always go back to this isn't gonna be an action based show. It won't. Now next week probably will be. And they've done that quite a bit, where I was saying we're like every sort of, they kind of, here's an action scene, and they kind of wait a few, you get a little bit, not a whole lot, and you'll wait 2 or 3 episodes, and you're gonna get an action scene. You're gonna see, it's that's just not what this world is. Um, but yeah, I really do like it. Some things I wish,
Please. I won't be any help here because I didn't play the DLC, but
yeah. I think the artistic take again to do like one sort of walker or whatever you call runner, sorry, one runner versus in the game, you literally I can't remember what happens. You play music or something, and it alerts everybody. It's like a horde just appears,
yeah.
and you're kind of running. I think this is far more realistic
Yeah.
and makes way more sense.
Just a game
Um,
versus video or show situation where
exactly
you just
right.
can't have that happen.
I think they kind of fixed that up nicely. In the game, there was other sequences as well. There was one like a water gun fight that you do. There's other things like that. There was a lot more visited. They actually kind of condensed it quite a bit in this one as well. You smash windows. You kind of do. There's a whole bunch of other things that you do to develop this relationship. But then again, that's not in this, and they just don't have the time for it. Um, it's it's one of those two that I don't know how to say it because I can see where you're at with this episode.
It made me sad.
It just had I never felt sad about it, but I remember my gut feeling once I had watched it was, yeah, that was Left Behind. Like I literally went, yeah, that was the DLC,
Yeah.
almost verbatim, right, front to end. That was it. That's exactly what they didn't really do anything that was wild or like change anything too crazy. Um, I just kind of went, yeah, that was it. And then I kind of sat on, and I was like, I guess I'm also looking through the lens of someone who's played it and knows where this is going and knows this stuff about the characters already. So it kind of takes away from that a little bit, I guess.
Mm,
Like for me, I was kind of like, oh yeah, but like people who haven't played the game are gonna want to know this stuff because part two isn't gonna make sense without this,
right.
right? Like part two isn't going to make sense without a lot of these memories and without a lot of these things that she says and without a lot of these character developing points that we've assumed, right? Or in my head, I'm like, oh yeah, I know this, but I'm like, well, people don't know this, so I think it has to exist. Um, it just yeah, it's an interesting take. One thing I don't like that they did with this, I'm just kind of keep hopping back and forth, is the game originally had you were in a mall in two different timestamps. So you were in current. So instead of like Ellie looking around the kitchen for that stuff, you're actually in a mall looking for antibiotics and a first aid kit
Oh,
to like because he's like, oh, he's burning up, it's infected, we need to get. So you're in there and it snaps back and forth between this mall that's completely destroyed and this mall that is you're with Riley, and it goes back and forth between the two. And I found that I think to me that would have been far more interesting, not far more interesting, but I think what it would have done is broken up some of the more boring, not boring parts, but
say it.
parts that you like you said that you just don't find as interesting,
Yeah.
right? As someone who doesn't really care about these origin stories.
I love origin
Um,
stories, man.
oh, you
I
do?
love them. I just think they screwed up with this one.
Oh, really?
My
Okay.
favorite thing in any game or anything I play is always getting to go back to the origin stories. Like in Assassin's Creed, when you start off at the very start with all your abilities, and then something
Yep.
happens to you and lose all your powers,
You
lose
lose
all
them
your
all.
stuff.
Yeah.
I love that stuff. In Metal Gear, when you go into the prison and you're just like wiped of all your stuff, and you're like, well, now I got nothing. Like I
Yeah.
love that stuff.
Hmm.
Like I said, I think it's just a timing thing for me. I think they just screwed up on where they put this episode.
Okay. So the placement. I mean, I do get that too. I do think though, this is like again based on what I know, this is gonna be the calm before the storm.
Mm, make a
Because I think
storm.
these next two are gonna be you're gonna be on the edge of your seat. I think for these next two,
You
as
should
long
be,
as
right, with how the next episode is gonna
oh
like,
yeah,
what it's
well
gonna be about.
the next two
Um,
for sure.
well, the last one
Um,
it doesn't even have to be that intense either, depending on what they do. Because like, I know there's a
I think
whole
they
scene where
will.
there's a lot of fighting, um, but
I think they
we'll
will.
see
Based
how
on what we
much they
saw
do.
scenes from next time, I think they will.
I think there'll be scenes there,
Um,
but maybe not necessarily the last episode.
okay,
I think that
okay.
might be a little calm down.
Okay. Let's do our reviews now. Let's do our review part now, maybe.
Let's do it.
We're actually gonna put a number to this thing.
Let's do it.
Do you want me to go first? I got first every time. I
No,
can
I'm
go
gonna go
first again.
first.
You're gonna go first? Okay,
I don't think
do
we're
it.
gonna have the same number.
Yep.
My number on this one is 6.5. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yep.
6.5. You're ruthless.
Um,
You are
man, I love the
ruthless. These
game.
guys are,
I
oh
love the
my
game.
goodness.
There was just
6.5.
nothing in this episode for me. I didn't laugh. I laughed a little bit. I didn't cry. It didn't make me care. Like I said, it didn't make me care anymore about either of the characters. I didn't care
Yeah.
less. They both did great jobs acting wise. I
Oh
just
yeah.
think
Wow.
in 9 episodes, when you have give or take 9.5 to 10 hours to tell an entire story,
Yeah.
spending an hour and a half to 2 hours with things that don't move the obvious plot forward, I think is a bit of a waste of time.
Okay.
And I think this episode just kind of fell flat for me. I don't need it to be an action, but I think with how aggressive you started the first 3 episodes of this series, I think it has dropped down quite a bit, with the exception of that one episode where we had the walkers blowing out of the house. I think that
Okay.
ever since then, it's been a bit of a decline. So, um, and I think this will be the lowest episode of the entire season.
You think so?
I do.
For you or for yourself personally?
Probably for me and probably
Or
for everyone. Bet you it'll be rated the worst out of all of them.
well, it's being review bombed for obviously reasons again, the same way number 3 was, but um
This one did not compare to number 3. People review bomb 3 for whatever reason. You're idiots. Number 3 was a
yeah.
perfect episode of TV.
Yeah, but this one was even like you look at it, like I checked that before I came on here just cuz kind of curious where it ended up. I looked at IMDb and it's basically it's got a really good score if you remove the vast majority of 1 stars or if you even
118.
just lower it to follow the rest of the yeah,
I hate
follow
that.
like
Nothing like
yeah, I know.
one is a broken
That's yeah.
episode of.
Yeah, that's like nothing makes sense. But anyway, okay. And I will also give you Poco score. He messaged me here just to kind of let him know where he stood on it.
Mm.
So you had 6.5 got there. Poco put it at 6. So he messaged me
Oh,
that an hour ago and he had a 6 also. So he was right along there with you. It wasn't really much for him in this one. So I mean, it's very similar to what you had. Myself, I'm going 8.5.
okay. Which is your
I re-
lowest score?
no, it's not. I think I
Okay.
still gave 7.5 or something to that other one.
Okay.
This one to me does have quite a bit of value. I think it's going to be one of those that we look back on and it's going to make more sense. Now, I do agree. The way this puts a little bit of pressure on the last 2 episodes, in my opinion. This puts a little bit of pressure on the last 2 episodes because we're running into a time crunch, and obviously, I know how they're going to go.
Mhm.
At this point, you know how they're just there's 2 main scenes left, so that's going to be 2 episodes, 2 main scenes. It's going to have to go that way unless they pull the old switcheroo on us or something.
Yep.
But um,
And if you guys are
it's
counting
it's gonna
zombies, you might
be
not see any in the last 2, right?
no, you'll see for sure.
Like, there's the one scene in the house that I can remember from the game when you're with
Oh yeah, actually, you know what? You're right.
Tom.
You might not see. Yeah, who knows? But I think we're and we could talk about that too. My plans for that as well. But yeah, so 8.5. Like I said, thoroughly enjoyed it. Thought it was
You don't have your
great.
screen on, by the way.
Obviously.
I don't know if you mean to, but you don't have your graphic up.
Oh, I no, I actually didn't change it. My bad. Yeah, I should do that, guys. Um, let's take a look also too. I can't remember what I gave the other one. The other one as well. I should probably do that so I can see for myself. So there's our scores for those people who want to see it. Yeah, I gave a 7.5 to episode 4, but yeah, so this will be an 8.5 for me. But yeah, everything is really like everything is so great in this episode as far as acting, as far as sets, as far as everything. Like I for no second I was like, "Oh, this is terrible CG," or
There's
"This is
nothing that takes you out of it, which is great.
exactly." It seems to be like they've done such a great job with this. So even just from that standpoint alone, I have a hard time. I mean, if the story was really terrible, I would go low, but I have a hard time going real low with that. But also, I do think the story, like I said a few times here, is going to serve the larger purpose here, um, which is going to be, I think, the entirety of the show and how these people grow, and we know that's what this is about. They're going to grow and they're going to change and they're going to be these fluid characters that are molded by the situations they're in, and that's kind of what we're seeing here, right? Ellie was molded by this situation, by her best friend, and maybe first love or whatever you want to call it dying with her, and this sort of begins just put her on sort of that track and how she became who she is. So I do find it very important. You're right. It's not quick, but it does go. Okay. As far as scenes then for next time. So let's get into all these things. So once again, if you don't want to know anything for next time, or if you don't know the games or anything, you don't want anything spoiled, stop here. Don't go any further because we'll probably say stuff here that you're not going to want to hear
Yeah.
next time.
I gotta.
Um,
I'll put. Sorry. I'll put like a 15-minute cap on it if we can.
oh yeah, no,
Ostrich has to
we're gonna do this
prepare
quick.
a
We're gonna do this
friggin'
quick.
trip.
Yeah. We're gonna do this real quick. So scenes from next time, we see the winter town. So those who played the game, the town, full of these guys, what happens in the game is you shoot a deer, which you see at the end. She shoots a deer, and another dude pops up right when she gets to it. And it's kind of like, we need the deer, and there's a standoff.
Oh,
Um,
that's the only infected part we might see, right? Because that's
yeah.
when that happens.
Well, I don't know if that part will actually happen or not. They might take that
But
out.
in the game, that's when it happens, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
anyway, these people that find you are connected to this town, full of this creepy dude and a bunch of other sort of bandits. So it looks like that's what we're getting. We saw the fire, so we saw the main bar restaurant.
Mhm.
That's, I assume, is what's going to be on fire,
That'll
which
be
has that
exciting.
really tense scene. We each have a lot of. They showed a lot of action. I'm surprised there was as much Troy Baker showed.
I
There was a
know.
lot of Troy showed in this. Um,
Get this guy in an acting role. Put him
I
in.
mean, if he kills it, I mean, why not? He might be too good to be a voice actor anymore. He might go full time.
Yeah, do it.
Do it. Why
He can
not?
definitely change his look quite a bit, so
He sings. He can play. He can sound like Christopher Walken. He can do anything.
This episode I am excited for, and I do think that after the last one, like, this will just make it that much more,
Yeah, this one
hopefully,
will go
exciting.
at breakneck speed.
Um,
What was that? Sorry.
I just said after the last one, I hope this one should feel just that much quicker,
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
they have a lot of chance to show off some cool stuff coming up, so,
Yep. Yep.
um
I imagine they're gonna show like everything. Yeah, with
they got
that, and
horses,
it's
they
gonna
got
be
fire, they got fights, they got
yeah. They got fights. They got tense moments. There's another sort of. I anticipate another sort of moment for Ellie as she kind of I don't know what to call it, but as she yeah, kills, I guess, the dude if they follow through with that. Which obviously isn't the first thing we've seen killed, but
yeah.
she does have in the game. It's a very sort of moment where now she like first hands off this dude very graphically. So I'm
Yeah,
kind of curious to see how graphic they get about it in this show.
and it's
Um,
kinda motivated by a different thing, like, yeah, she's motivated to survive still and stuff like that, but I would assume it's the first time in the game too, where it's, like, more of a sexual thing, like, this dude is a creepy dude, and he is
yeah, he's a very creepy
not
dude.
shying away from that, so it's also
So
got
it
some pretty heavy undertones that I think are gonna fuel that fire in her a little bit more,
yeah,
so
for sure. It's gonna be one of those. So I'm definitely, and then like I said, we got 2 episodes. We got that one, and I think the last one. I imagine the next episode is gonna end at the end. They leave this place, and I imagine the last episode's gonna just be spring. The problem is with that is that spring is gonna be like wild. I think, in my opinion,
I don't know
like
how I don't
44 minutes or 40, like the shortest one
it's
of the
so short.
season.
Like, what are you guys doing?
Unless they're pulling the wool over our eyes and this is only gonna be like half an hour, they get through the town and they're moving on. Like I don't know.
Don't you
But
dare.
and I think what I want to do at the end of this show is obviously we'll sit down and I want to kind of just an overview podcast of this is what we thought, our full rating on the full show, everything together
Yeah,
as kind of just a wrap it up episode.
dig it.
um is what I want to do with this too, because I think pacing might be one of those things we talk about and where our time was spent versus not, or maybe it'll all land in the end and we like, okay, yeah, makes sense,
Yeah, it'll be
or
nice to
oh,
look
this
back at
should
it
have,
all.
yeah, or hey, this should have been maybe 10 episodes or 11 episodes,
Yeah.
right? Or like you said, or maybe in your case, maybe Left Behind didn't need to exist.
Because
um
every show is gonna have some sort of pacing at some point, and then you look at any show that's ever existed, like, especially if they exist over numerous seasons. I mean, there are
yeah,
some show or some episodes of Game of Thrones where it's just like, what has happened in this episode? Like, we've seen you'd go entire episodes without seeing certain characters because they just had so many convoluted storylines. So
yeah, I mean that's basically
every
Game
show
of
has
Thrones
it.
in a nutshell.
So we'll
Yeah.
just see how much it actually affects our overall opinion in the end of it.
Oh, absolutely. But I mean, like, so yeah, that'll be any sort of final words or anything you want to say before we sign off?
Hmm.
Other than we talked about next time and
Yeah,
nothing really new. I think we
I'm
kind of talked this one.
I'm I'm okay with my where I've
You're
left
okay
it.
with it?
I'm
Let
not
the
happy
internet
with how
hate
I've
on
left
you.
it.
Chat down below in the video comment. Do
Yeah,
you
go
agree with
for it.
me? Do you agree with Poka? Do you agree with
I think
Ostrich?
Poca brought some great opinions to this one. So,
Yeah, he did. He did.
uh,
Poco, thank you.
I've
Didn't
talked
blink the entire time.
I've talked with a couple people who have watched it, and they all kind of said similar stuff or to myself, where they were just kind of bit a little blasé with it, but they're
Mm.
also none of them have played the game, which I mean, I'm assuming most of the people watching haven't played the game, so
It'd be a large contingency, you think, yeah.
it'd be tricky. So I think if you have people who aren't playing the game, not into it, that's going to be an issue. But I guess it depends how many seasons it goes to. So
Yeah. Lots yet to come. Even
yeah,
though we're only got 2 episodes, a lot of story left to be told. Yeah.
got a couple
And
seasons.
I mean it's gonna be great.
I think Perma's
It's
fair.
gonna be super exciting. These like oh, I'm so excited for these next 2. It's gonna be wild. I just wish they were an hour and a half each. That's all I
Oh,
wish.
yeah, you need more time.
You know? I need more time. I need more time with this. But without further ado, then we are gonna end it here, folks. That's Poka TTV over there. Not really moving, doing a lot of streaming lately, so make sure you give him a follow. And the
I was
other
gonna say
person on the other side is
Poca's network.
Ostrichwrangler 1. Sometimes streams,
Yeah,
does TikToks apparently.
I do
Does
TikToks.
he TikToks, so go ahead and look him up.
Same name.
Give him a follow.
Do it.
Give him some positive feedback on his vids. You know
I
the
post funny
deal.
ones sometimes.